All right, folks, welcome back to Talkin' Soccer, where we are going to talk about the U.S. Women's National Team beating Wales 2-0 to finish off their pre-World Cup warm-up. This is the final game before the World Cup group stages start, and I thought this was a good representation for what this team could be at the World Cup. Now, obviously, this wasn't the starting roster, this wasn't the starting lineup, but I think the way that this game went gives you some things to be very excited about and some things to be a little bit cautious and optimistic about as we kind of like hedge our excitement for the games coming up. Let's talk about the starting lineup, of course. The U.S. roll out Alyssa Thompson, Alex Morgan, and Sophia Smith as the front three. A midfield of Lindsay Horan, Ashley Sanchez, and Andy Sullivan. A back four of Crystal Dunn, Naomi Girma, Alana Cook, Emily Fox, and then Alyssa Nair as the goalkeeper. This is, definitely not their strongest starting 11. It's not my favorite midfield, but it did the job defensively at the very least. Wales had some opportunities, but for the number 30th ranked team in the world, nothing that would make you think that they were, coming to play to dominate this game. They played in a low block for most of this match, really, and the U.S. really had issues breaking down that low block, but stop me if you've heard that before, right? Halftime, it ends 0-0. Alyssa Thompson, I thought, had some moments, but she also had some moments where you could tell this is a teenager who, is still finding her game, needs to kind of learn when to push on, when to not push on. But that's commonplace for just a very talented young winger who thinks they can do it all, who can kind of do it all, but at the international level, she just needs to play more games, honestly. That's what it comes down to, which, maybe you see that growth throughout the World Cup. And I don't think Alyssa Thompson starts at the World Cup, but having her come on, in the 65th minute to run at defenses and, forward defend, that's a very scary prospect. I'll talk about what I want to see my ideal starting lineup be at the end of this video. It's not going to be super long today. I want to have some more World Cup previews, on the channel, so I'm not going to dissect the US's group or anything, but at least kind of talk about the outlook of what this game means. So as Wales kind of built through the half, they have some moments, but again, it's nothing that really makes you sweat. They go into halftime, you wonder what adjustments Flacco is going to throw out there. We were updated that Rose Lavelle and Megan Rapinoe are going to be healthy at the World Cup. Flacco said after the match that they are ramping up, but they were unavailable for this match. And in the first half, I think you really saw where, especially Rose Lavelle, obviously Megan Rapinoe kind of comes off the bench these days, but Rose Lavelle, as your starting midfielder, gives you so much more connectivity than Ashley Sanchez does. Now, Ashley Sanchez is a very good, very dangerous player, but she doesn't have that same level of control of the midfield that Rose Lavelle has. Lavelle can drop back in deep, can pick up the ball, can just, by her presence in the midfield, I think just makes everyone better. A Horan, Sullivan, Lavelle midfield that we've seen before, we kind of know what that's going to give us, but it's a little bit better than what we had in the first half. So second half rolls around, we have some subs. Trinity Rodman comes on at the half. That's going to end up being very important for Alex Morgan. It'll be interesting to see how Flacco rotates this attack. I kind of put this out there on Twitter and on Threads, by the way. I'm on Threads now. I had to activate my Instagram to go on Threads, so if you're out there, follow me at HornickerJustin. Anyway, Trinity Rodman comes on, gets 2 goals here, and I don't know if it's necessarily what she brings next, as opposed to what Alex Morgan brings. I think Alex Morgan, as your kind of out-and-out striker, Trinity can play that in the same way that Sophia Smith can play striker and excel and be one of the best strikers in the world, but their move sets are almost better as wingers or inside forwards that, can play out wide and come in versus being that target person, that striker. That being said, both of Trinity Rodman's goals from this matchup come as being that target striker. So other subs in this match, Lynn Williams comes on. Savannah DeMello makes her first U.S. Women's National Team appearance, and I actually thought DeMello had a fantastic match here. And Sofia Huerta comes on the 64th, followed by your final subs, Emily Sonnet, Christy Mewis, Lynn Williams, I think, will be used in that kind of super sub role. Vlatko's kind of hinted at it that he thinks that Williams can be the best 20-minute player in the world. I think Lynn Williams probably wants to play more than 20 minutes, given kind of the form that she's in and how good she is. But this is where the U.S. really started to make this difference, is when Trinity Rodman, Lynn Williams, and Sophia Smith were all out there together, and just their ability to make different runs and to be overall fast and dynamic, but also have that veteran presence that Alyssa Thompson doesn't have yet, which is, know when to make a run, know when to time things a little bit differently. This is where things really broke open. Sophia Smith just takes on the entirety of the Wales midfield, has everyone chasing after her. Trinity Rodman is on the right side of her in the box. Clark comes out to, try to force a shot, but she finds Rodman wide open in the box, basically. It's kind of like a FIFA goal where you're just running at the goal and your teammate is right there and you kind of send that through ball. It's exactly what I do in FIFA, right? So I can talk about this goal. But what that is that's just Trinity Rodman's speed matching up to Sophia Smith's speed. And obviously at the club level, you don't have all these players playing together. You don't necessarily have players that can match that level of speed. So what Vlatko can do, what this U.S. women's national team can do, is really exploit that level of speed and sending balls in behind. And it's easier said than done, especially with Wales did such a good job with their low block. But the second you disorganize them and you can get players in behind, you can send players down both flanks and send players down the middle, it becomes a much more reasonable outlook. So Trinity Rodman scores again towards the end of the match, seals it up 2-0. And Trinity Rodman not starting in this match, but I think she ends up starting at the World Cup. I don't know what else she has to do to convince Vlatko to start. I think a starting three of Smith, Morgan, and Rodman on that left flank, or the right flank too. I guess that's the tough thing. It's almost like Alex Morgan doesn't work into that front three with Trinity Rodman and Sophia Smith, because you want to play Smith and Rodman both on that right side if they're playing on the wing. So it makes it harder on that left side. This is where, Mal Swanson's injury becomes very important. So figuring out what to do with that left side will be interesting. Alex Morgan still brings a lot to the table. She's not having the best year in the NWSL, but she had a fantastic year last year and, has always been flawless at the US level. And it's her last dance, so to speak, you would think, especially with Megan Rapinoe announcing her retirement this week after the NWSL season. So there's a lot of interesting wrinkles you can do, because this is the best attacking group in the world. It's the most dangerous attacking group in the world, but there's almost too many players for what this team can do, especially if the midfield continues to not give that connectivity that they need. And that was kind of not just the problem in this match, but the problem throughout the entirety of this World Cup buildup, is that there really is no connectivity between the midfield and the attack when there is a low block that they're playing against. This team can play fast break soccer, can play transition soccer, up and down soccer, and run you off the pitch and put 8 goals up on you. But the second you put a low block in front of them, it becomes a lot harder to get the attack involved. And this is kind of how, I guess, the transition in women's soccer has been, that ability for less dominant teams to have more solidity in their low blocks. That's why Sam Kerr sometimes for Australia, or I guess not for Australia yet, but at Chelsea, Sam Kerr ran into some issues this year where teams would just bog down the midfield and not let Sam Kerr get involved. And you see that with Alex Morgan at San Diego. And you see that with these very good strikers who aren't necessarily players that drop back in deep and can connect that midfield themselves. They all of a sudden get isolated up top, and that's where you run into these issues and this frustration that can sometimes come out of the U.S. And I think that frustration, again, is more like fan frustration than actual frustration on the field, but it'll be interesting. So let's talk about our ideal starting 11. I think Alyssa Naeher, it's her starting job. As much as I love this goalkeeping core, I'm not going to take that job away from Alyssa Naeher. The questions here, as much as you love Murphy and Kingsbury, I don't think the goalkeeper is a question at all. I think the back line of Cook, Gurma, Fox, and Dunn is pretty solid. I don't know if Son and Overcook makes much of a difference for me. I think either way, they're both similarly pro and con in their strengths and weaknesses. I'm happy to be wrong, though, if somebody wants to point that out in the comments. Emily Fox, I love her game. And, of course, Crystal Dunn has to be on the field at all times. Now, an argument that I made on the Talking Soccer Substack, if you're there, with my just looking through this lineup, is that Crystal Dunn should be a midfielder, and that if you look at her numbers in the NWSL this year, her ability to contribute offensively, she is the highest player from a goals added perspective that's not an attacker. So you see what she does as a defender. You like her ability to get out wide. You see the amount of crosses that she can send in, but I almost wonder if she's more effective centrally. Then you run into the issue of, does it make sense to move Dunn centrally if all of a sudden that left flank becomes an issue? But I think if you moved Fox over to the left, if you brought in Sofia Huerta as your starting right back, I think that's still a very good fullback pairing. And then if you had, say, Rose Lavelle, Lindsay Horan, and Crystal Dunn in the midfield, I think that ends up looking pretty good and pretty dangerous, because Dunn can also be a defensive midfielder who can splay balls forward for you. So like I said, no Rose Lavelle, no Megan Rapinoe, no Julie Ertz in this one, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, I think the Julie Ertz conversation is potentially one to have as this World Cup goes on. If they kind of move heaven and earth to get her back in the team and then she ends up not being very effective, I think that's an issue with the current setup. But we will not create problems before we get there, right? Outside of that, Christy Mewis, I like her in a substitution role. I think Flacco really likes her as that player to come in and kind of see a game out. I think she's no nonsense. She's not going to get you into trouble. And I think she can make plays on her own, too. I'm a very big Christy Mewis fan. For the U.S. to not run into trouble, they're going to have to figure some things out, and they're going to have to tweak. And this game looked like a game of a team who has not played a bunch together. And I think with all the new pieces coming in, you have this mix of generations where you have the young generation, the old generation, not much in the middle. And that's going to take time to gel. And I think that with the leadership on this team and what we know about that locker room, it's been immaculate vibes. This is Megan Rapinoe's last dance for sure. And I'm sure a lot of the other veterans are feeling that way as well. So I think, when you grow up idolizing players on the national team, then you get to that national team to play with them, you want to send them out on the right foot. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought about this match. Also, if you made it this far, let me know what your ideal starting 11 is. I would love to kind of see what my viewers think, what the Talkin' Soccer universe thinks about the ideal U.S. Women's National Team starting 11. If this is your first time stumbling upon this video, give me a follow. I'm going to be talking, subscribe. I'm going to be talking more Women's World Cup as we get closer. I also have some content planned around the World Cup groups. And as always, give me a thumbs up if you enjoy this video. You can follow me on other social media, the Talkin' Soccer page on Instagram, on TikTok. I put out shorter form content that you might not see on the YouTube channel, at Twitter, on Threads, at Horniger Justin, if you want to see my unfiltered thoughts on soccer. So, and my St. Louis City coverage, and my Kansas City Current coverage, and my NWSL coverage, all that good stuff. Anyway, let's not make this video any longer. Thank you all so much for stopping by, and we'll talk very soon.